Hi everyone, I'm Selena and welcome to Fremont Debate Academy. Today we're going to be talking about research skills. First, why are we researching? So research is really helpful and is a very valuable skill to have because it gives you proof to use in your speeches. Whenever you're saying something in a speech, you obviously want to have some evidence or proof to back it up and prove why what you're saying is correct. So once you do more research, you can find credible sources and evidence to prove that the content in your speech is correct. Secondly, it helps you get expert analysis. So this evidence is going to help support whatever you're saying in your speech and make it make more sense to the audience. Third, it makes you look smarter. So not only when it makes you look smarter and make your content make more sense, it convinces your audience that what you're saying is correct. Next, we're moving on to how to research. So there's 3 key steps in how you're going to be using your research skills to apply them to your speeches and support whatever you're saying. First is keywords, and then you're going to narrow down the results based on these keywords to find more details about them. Then out of those details, you're going to pick the most important quotes to actually include in your speech. And we'll be talking about this 3-step process in the next few slides. First, on keywords. This is going to be picking apart the most important words in your topic. For example, if you have a general topic that is called bullet ants, you want to pick these 2 keywords and look them up on Google. You want them to be short and concise so you can narrow down the results to the most related websites that are the closest to your topic. Next, you want to assemble a toolbox. This is going to be the main ideas of your general topic. So if you think of this like an essay that many of you have written in school, if the general topic of your essay was bullet ants, then the toolbox would be the topics of your body paragraphs. So these are listed in the examples here. For example, initiation rights might be a topic about bullet ants in the body paragraph. Next, you're going to use this toolbox of more specific main ideas to develop your research. You're going to Google these specific keywords, initiation rights of bullet ants, and then find more details while reading about them. So you can see in this example, natives use bullet ant stings in initiation rituals. So there you have very specific detail from your toolbox about this general topic. The second step is to narrow down your research. The internet has a lot of different websites and resources that we can use. Google itself has millions of websites, but not all of them are credible, which means we can't really use all of them. So we have to narrow them down to the best websites that give us the most credible and relevant information. Credibility is how true something is and how believable it is to your audience, and we can evaluate it in 3 key steps, ABC. A stands for author. So the author is the person writing the article that you're reading, writing the research paper, or writing the blog. You usually want the author to have some kind of research experience or have a position who's reputable and is a professional in their field. Someone who may have a PhD would be a great author who is credible rather than a stranger who has no information about them in a random blog. B stands for bias. So oftentimes when you read news articles, you might see that it's very leaning towards one side. It might be an opinionated article, which is supporting this one specific idea and negating everything else. So you want to find an article or a source that is in the middle ground. So it considers 2 sides of the story, the pros and the cons, and isn't too biased towards one side. This provides the most reliable information and statistics to your speech because it gives you options to pick from instead of only showing you one side of the story. C stands for currency. This is how updated the article or resource that you're reading from is. An article that is published in the 1990s might not have the most updated information because a lot of things would have changed between then and now. An article published last year or a few months ago would definitely be relevant and current because it's probably very updated. Something to note is that the date the article is published is different from the date the article is updated. For example, if an article was published in 2005, but the author has continued updating it with new information every 5 years or so, and it was recently updated a couple of months ago, then it would still be pretty current. By using this credibility, you can remove non-credible sources using the ABC format and really narrow down your research to get the most credible, most reliable sources that are the best to use for your speech. Picking quotations. Whenever you're quoting something from a source, you always want to cite it, or else the audience will think that you either just made it up on your own or it doesn't really have any credibility behind it. An example of this is you can use the author, Dr. Chen from Harvard University, a reputable research university, and thinking back to the why research slide, you want your source to add credibility and make what you're saying in your speech more accurate and relatable to your audience. So you always want to cite it to actually get that credibility. Secondly, your source and your quotation needs to describe the entirety of the topic. You don't want it to be too narrow or else it wouldn't add, or too broad, or else it wouldn't add anything to your speech. You can pick between these two options for practice. Number 1, Dr. Chen from Harvard University says that climate change is irreversible and the world needs to be carbon neutral by 2020. Number 2, Dr. Chen from Harvard University says climate change sucks. Pause this video if you need a little bit more time to think about which quotation would be the best support for your speech. The answer is the first option. By saying how climate change is irreversible and setting an actual date of 2020 for when the world needs to be carbon neutral, it adds this extra evidence and adds this extra credibility to your speech that you wouldn't have otherwise. Saying climate change sucks is a little bit too general, and it doesn't really add anything to your speech, because if that was the main idea of your speech, then your audience would be like, I knew that already. Why are you saying this? Lastly, there's a difference between emotional and statistical evidence. Speech is meant to push for an action. So, for example, if your speech was about cholera and you wanted to do something against cholera disease and really push that message, you have a choice between emotional and statistical evidence. For statistics, you can use numbers. An example of this in this context is 3 million people died of cholera. This relates to the audience because they can see, wow, 3 million people? That's a lot of people. And then they can see the magnitude of this statistic. They can see, wow, this is a really big problem that actually needs to be solved. Or you can go with an anecdote. This is going to be a story that is a more personal and relatable connection to the audience. An example of this, my aunt suffered from cholera and ended up losing her life after a long battle in the hospital. We will miss her deeply. Sometimes when you want to use a story, it can be more effective because when you hear a number like 3 million people, you don't really realize how big that is. You can start with a story and then say, wow, this is so sad. And the audience can feel that sadness. And then you can say, now imagine that sadness times 3 million. If you put these two together, then that really makes an impact on your audience by getting the emotional connection and also the reliability and credibility behind the number. I hope this video helped in developing your research skills to include in your further speeches. Thank you for listening, and if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe for more content.